Gen Z is trying to cancel Typhlosion. So over the weekend, we've been experiencing just about the biggest Pokemon leaks ever seen. The short of it is that somebody hacked into Game Freak servers and copied several files, including beta Pokemon early game builds, the plot of the entire currently airing anime, internal meeting briefs, and lots of personal employee information. Yeah, it's bad. But among all of these are a few stories discussing Pokemon mythology with a focus on the relationship between humans and Pokemon. So in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about one of them, and then we'll have a serious chat about the Terra leak as we're calling it. The big reactions are around a few stories about Pokemon who definitely got very close to humans. Basically, it's become Vaporeon 2.0, except now the unfunniest person you know will attempt to claim that it's all canon. The most notorious is a story involving a Typhlosion that supposedly hypnotizes a little girl into staying with him until she eventually marries him and has a child. Except that's not really what happens. For one thing, we need to take into consideration the fact that these were early ideas for folktales that we would eventually see in the completed game of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl's Canalave City Library. Even in the context of a finished game, these aren't necessarily true and are meant as mythology first and foremost. Also, there is the important fact that the stories being posted and shared are actually mistranslations that were generated because people just put the Japanese text through a machine translator, which basically butchers the entire thing. Twitter user Roltas has put together a great thread about the topic and was able to get some proper translations of the Typhlosion story at least. The thread itself has been translated into English, so it's a lot easier to read for other people, but I believe the story itself is still in Spanish only. Luckily, I can read Spanish pretty well, so I'll be giving you the skinny. For one thing, the very beginning tells us that this is a tale from a time long ago when people and Pokemon were very similar. You may recognize that line because it's one that we read verbatim in the finished game from one of the Canalave City Library stories. Again, that isn't necessarily canon, though many people try to tell you that it is. The point is that this is to craft a narrative that basically presents Pokemon as similar to yokai from Japanese mythology, where they're often sentient, intelligent creatures capable of speech but are still different enough from humans to the point there is a significant conflict between them. Another important distinction is that the age of a girl is never really stated. Again, that whole thread breaks it down a lot better, but from the Spanish text at least, it basically presents her as a young woman. She lives in a village up in the mountains. One day while she's out in the forest, she gets lost and comes across a man living there. As it becomes darker and the weather begins to worsen, they retreat to the man's cave and rest there. The man tells her that she's allowed to stay on the condition that she doesn't look at him while he's sleeping. Side note, this is apparently reminiscent of Japanese folktales about badgers on which Typhlosion is based. Anyway, days go by and both the woman and the man spend most of their day sleeping, only waking up to eat. Over time, she realizes the man is actually a Typhlosion and they continue their routine, basically hibernating for the entire winter. Eventually, the woman effectively becomes the Typhlosion's wife and she has a child. The people from the village come looking for the woman and try to take her back, killing the Typhlosion. The woman and her child go back to live with the humans but face ridicule and discrimination. At one point, the woman and her son let out a loud howl and run off into the forest, never to be seen again. Like I said, that's a very summarized version of the story, and I recommend reading it yourself if you get a chance, and as long as you're reading the proper translation and have the proper context in mind. And hopefully from that you can see this isn't as clear as, oh, Typhlosion groomed a girl, and is a lot more like a folktale about a woman being shown kindness by a being that she admires so much that she begins to take on some of his mannerisms, almost becoming a Typhlosion herself. Again, this is said to be from a time where people and Pokemon were almost indistinguishable, so if a human were to spend all their time with a Pokemon and live like one, what's really the difference? Even after she was supposedly rescued and brought back home, the other villagers treated her like she was less than human, doing much worse than anything the Typhlosion actually did. Also, there's no mention of hypnosis, and the fact that she bears a child with Typhlosion is more symbolic of her bond with it, and it serves as a way to show she literally can't go back to properly existing among people. She's already become a part of another world. Yeah, it is weird to read in practice, but with the Japanese version of the Canalave City Library folktales that actually did make it into the final game, that was already sort of implied to be a thing. So let's talk about canon. Even if this story and the others did get adapted into the widely released version of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, it really wouldn't be treated as canon in-universe. I mean, with all the outlandish mythology we have in real life, there's definitely much worse, but the thing is that nobody really believes it. Like, parts of the Pokédex will definitely bring us some mythology that sounds really weird, but they'll always state it as such, saying that it's only believed by certain people. And then there's also the fact that they were left out. These stories and ideas never did make it into the final game, so why are we treating them with this high level of importance? Yes, it was considered and discussed, but I think for people who don't really create anything themselves aside from interaction bait tweets, they're unable to comprehend the concept of scrapped ideas and cut content in the context of a story-based product. Let's say there was an early script for the very video that you're watching right now where I ran with the idea that these stories were 100% true. If I rewrite the script before publishing the video, does my old idea matter, or does the new version that the wider audience watches take priority? You wouldn't have even known about the scrapped ideas if they weren't leaked out. My real point is that I normally wouldn't discuss something like this in a video. I think some of the early details that have unfortunately leaked onto the internet are kind of cool and it gives you a little peek into the game development process, but as somebody who makes content about nostalgia, story, characters, and most of all my personal feelings, what really does any of this do for me? I have no personal connection to cut content because I never got to experience it. The story and character concepts we're seeing are like rough drafts before the final draft, so it's unfair for me to judge them, and I just personally don't really care, especially when there's unethical stuff going around in the same batch. I know it's great to catalog some of the details and there are people who enjoy covering it, but for me, everything I've been seeing really does not fit the type of content that I want to make. I really wanted to bring this up because I saw a need for a clarification and the old enemy of the Pokemon fanbase reared its ugly head, that being a lack of reading comprehension. I do enjoy a good Pokemon meme when it's actually funny, but what I've been seeing is clout chasing based on misinformation, and for these to be reactions based on a story that is truly a piece of art, it's saddening to see it being misrepresented. I honestly did enjoy the Typhlosion story despite the fact that it isn't actually canon. It's got kind of a Beauty and the Beast type vibe, which they should definitely remake and cast me as a beast instead. And I also felt the need to go to bat for one of my favorite starter Pokemon that I do have some great memories with ever since I chose it when I played Pokemon Silver. So if you're wondering, no, I will not be going into the same depths for the other stories. They will not be future videos, and when I eventually discuss those Pokemon, I will not bring them up. I will not talk about any of the recent beta Pokemon we got to see. I will not break down details of unreleased content. Currently it's the month of October and I really want to make spooky Halloween videos. I hope you enjoy them. So let me know what you think down below. Have you looked into any of the forbidden text over the weekend, and what are your thoughts on the whole situation without spoiling things for others? Also, I really do want to encourage you all to take up reading as a hobby. It's really done wonders for me.
Because each time I read, I'm building my brain and becoming smarter, a better trainer, and one day, a Pokemon master.
Anyway, I should get back to writing my very own stories that will hopefully see the light of day under better circumstances. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, including the great Gators, Alex with Shiny Hunter, Tyler Hopper, Jake Brody, GigaWiiU64, Isabella Lawrence, Alive R360, Nani, The Shoeman, Copybot, Master, Chaotic Sasano, 02, Lockadox, KoiKoi13, Cemetery Hill, Pastel Blood, Cosmo 0, Rainfrux, Cheezit62, GatorKid509, TF, Mathaclock947, Taijirai, Justin R, Phantom, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes for comments, live streams, and sometimes early videos, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter as well for more memes. Anyway, this is GatorX, and I'll catch you all later.
Conquistaste al rojo. Conquistaste al azul. Triunfaste sobre el amarillo. Atrapaste a todos. Y ahora estás listo para el nuevo reto. Bienvenido al mundo de Pokémon Gold y Silver. Toneladas de nuevos Pokémon. Nuevas aventuras y mundos por explorar. Nuevas medallas por colectar. Así es que, medítalo. ¿Tendrás lo que se necesita? Pokémon Gold y Silver, clasificado E para todos. Atrápalos ya.